Now let's dive into our track and see how we can elevate it from an amateurish demo to a polished, professional, radio-ready piece. Crafting a melody isn't just about selecting the right notes. We have a G and a G sharp playing at the same time. Here it is how it sounds like. It's not great. It should be your song. And our song's blueprint definitely needs some work. Adding more tension on this last chord. Not only do lyrics need to convey meaningful words, our lyrics dive deep into this bleak reality. If your production falls short, chances are this detail is missing. Monochrome the city's face. We've got all the sounds, but they are not fitting together right. First, let's turn our focus to the volume of each individual track. There we go, much better. However, our mix needs additional fine-tuning. Ignoring phase coherence and time alignment is like trying to take a sharp picture with an out-of-focus lens. Parts of the image will be clear, while others will be blurry. This can often occur with instruments recorded using multiple mics, such as drums and guitars, resulting in a sound that's fuzzy and lacks punch and definition. That's because sound hits each mic at a different time. To correct this, we employ time alignment to ensure all tracks emit sound simultaneously. And additionally, we adjust phase alignment to further sharpen the sound, much like fine-tuning the focus on a camera lens. These are different mics for the kick drum, and they should start at the same time. The waves don't line up, so we have to just make sure everything line up perfectly. These two mics were at the top of the snare. The waveform is going up and then down, whereas this is the opposite. This was the mic at the bottom of the snare. The waveform is going down and then up. So we need to reverse the polarity of this waveform so that it goes up and then down, like these two ones. Otherwise, this waveform is going to cancel out with these two ones. So if I add this plugin to this file here, and I reverse the polarity, as you can see, we've changed the polarity of this waveform to match the one of the other two snare mics. So now it's time for you to listen to the improvement of the isolated drum tracks. The sound is more focused and clear, almost as if we've adjusted an EQ. But remember, this clarity isn't achievable by simple EQ changes. On the contrary, EQ moves can sometimes exacerbate phase issues. More on this in an upcoming video. Now let's make sure our tracks editing is finely tuned. Just like we wouldn't want bugs in our plate, we don't want unwanted sounds in our mix, right? Let's make sure that all our tracks are cleanly edited so that the beginning and end of each audio region doesn't have unwanted parts or sounds that come through. We don't want this tail to go ahead in the chorus. And there are parts where we want dead silence. For example, here, everything should stop but that percussion loop. So everything here should be cut off abruptly. Okay, now everything seems edited and polished to me, so let's move on to the next step. There we have it. Next, it's like there is not enough flavor in our track. Everything is a bit flat, too flat. At this point in the mixing process, I want to make sure that our general EQ curve sounds okay. And in order to do that, I would play some reference tracks and try to match their general EQ curve. Unfortunately, I won't be able to let you listen to the reference tracks because of copyright claims and things like that, but that won't be a big issue. To begin with, I would like to add an EQ curve on the master bus so that all our tracks are affected by it. And that EQ curve would just add some high end and some low end. In order to do this, I would like to use some hardware analog equalizers. So let's now counterbalance the general EQ curves that we've added by going into the individual channels or the buses and fine tune the EQ of each track. Now, let's enhance our track with some compression. The right amount of it can make our sounds punchier, enhancing those subtle, low-level details that might otherwise go unnoticed. Remember, it's a delicate process. While we want to add some life to our track, we also need to maintain the right balance of dynamics. Compression is like a secret sauce. Too much can smother the original taste. We'll do a balance of compression on the individual tracks. We'll also add compression on some buses like drum bus. Much of what I've covered about compression is also true for saturation, another crucial aspect of the mixing process. Now it's time to add some saturation to our track and see what kind of difference that is going to make. Like compression, also saturation is going to be added on individual tracks, but also on some buses like the drum bus, the vocal bus, the bass, and things like that. For example, I'll start to add saturation on the kick drum, and I will use an analog hardware I have here. I prefer using analog stuff for saturation because saturation is one of those things where hardware gets slightly better than the software versions. Here we are, I've added saturation on our tracks. Here is how it sounds. A subtle touch of saturation can bring warmth and character to our track. But saturation can easily go wrong too. This is where understanding gain staging becomes critical. while adding saturation, it's very important that you make sure that your gain staging is okay. Basically, you need to check that you are not overloading the output of a plugin or a hardware device, or vice versa, saturating the input of a device by outputting a signal that is too loud from the previous device in the chain. So if you don't pay attention, you run the risk of clipping the signal in unpleasing ways, let's say. So I will make a practical example of gain staging in the real world. Before this channel strip, there's this plugin now. And I just increased the volume in the output of this plugin. Let's exaggerate this. See, it's clipping. Just set up the output of the previous plugin in the chain or the previous hardware in the chain in a way that allows you to not clip the input of the next plugin or the next device. So something like this would be okay, for example, right? And of course, this reasoning applies to every chain you make all over your mix. This is just an example with the kick bus, but this also applies to the drum bus, to the instrumental bus, to whatever chain you have, generally speaking. Are we finally done with the song? Not yet. There's still room for improvement, especially in managing our vocal track sibilance. It's too sharp. Let's soften this for a smoother, more pleasing sound. In the case of vocals in specific, we want to make sure that S's, C's, T's, and all these kinds of sounds that have a lot of high frequency energy are tamed correctly and are not too pronounced. Because if they are, they can kind of hurt your ear, let's say, which means that can, generally speaking, bother you and make the listening experience unpleasing. So we want to smooth out these parts where there are high frequency spikes, and in order to do that, we use de-essers or multiband compression or similar devices. In this case, there's already some multiband compression going on, so I'll just add a tiny bit of de-essing. Now let's continue refining. There are no set rules on which effects to use or how much, but wise and tasty choices are crucial. For this song, I'm imagining a compact, medium reverb for the drums, while the vocals need more ethereal and lush effects. These tools can also be used to create contrast between different song sections. Applying distinct vocal and drum effects to the choruses versus the verses can add a pinch of surprise to our song transitions and add the sensation of magic we're searching for. Now it's time to add some effects, reverbs, and delays to our vocal and our drums, because pretty much every other track has its own effect already. Let's start with the vocals. Generally speaking, I want the vocal effects in the verse to be different than the vocal effects in the chorus. So we will set up two different effects, one for the verse and one for the chorus, and then we might want to have a different effect also for the backing vocals, but that's something that we'll understand later on. Usually I have multiple reverbs and delays, and I usually do a blend of those in order to achieve the final effect. Okay, the vocal effect seems to be at a right spot right now. For the drums, I'm thinking about using a smaller medium reverb. Probably I will use the room samples that I recorded during the drum session. So it's basically augmenting the real drums in the most natural way possible, let's say. So here is an example of the drums dry without any additional effect. Now let's listen to the drums with the additional room samples that I've just added. As you can hear, they sound much bigger and fuller and powerful. Better, right? we're getting close to our goal. Now let's open up the stereo image of this track so it feels wider and bigger. I do that with an analog hardware, an external unit. You can do it with plugins. There are a ton of plugins that do that. But, I like how the hardware does the stereo widening. It feels bigger and wider, and it has its unique way of doing it. And now for the final garnishing, the master bus processing and limiting. When done right, it gives our track that rich wall of sound quality you hear in top productions. Let's add the final touches to our track by tweaking and fine-tuning the master bus processing. There's already some processing on the master bus, but it's only a tiny bit of processing right now. We need to add more processing, limiting, so that we can have a final master of our track. I'm adding a little bit of clipping with this plugin here. Clipping is before limiting so that we basically square off a little bit of the transients that poke through the mix. In this way, the limiter is going to compress and work a bit less. We are done. This was just one example, and I tried to cover as many problems and fixes as I could. But I want to know what you think. What are the big issues that make a track sound like a newbie made it? And hey, if there's something I didn't mention in this video, please drop a comment. I'm eager to hear your thoughts. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. So let's circle back to the question I posed at the start of this video. What crucial lesson did I glean from my early days at SAE Institute? Here it is. It's absolutely okay to be less than perfect when you first venture into music production. This field is a confluence of various skill sets: arrangement, audio engineering, musicianship, instrumental skills, to name just a few. To truly excel, one needs to develop a balanced proficiency across all these areas. Yet, amongst this myriad of skills, there's one that stands paramount, one foundational ability that underpins everything else: our ears. The transition from an amateur to a professional in music production is anchored in the acuity of your auditory skills. The finesse of a discerning ear far outweighs the allure of high-end equipment, expensive software, or even exceptional music performance skills. Indeed, with a finely tuned ear, you can delegate performance tasks to others, directing them to play exactly as you envision, resulting in an impressive outcome. Conversely, without a good ear, even these decisions could lead to disappointing results. But placing trust in your ears comes only with training. For those of you who are unfamiliar, ear training can be broadly categorized into two distinct areas. One focuses on ear training for audio engineers, where you become adept at identifying frequency problems, compression issues, etc. This type of ear training generally comes naturally with experience and is mostly useful during the mixing stage. But remember, a great mix can't fix a bad song or weak performances. The mix is the final step, and it totally relies on having a strong song, killer arrangement, catchy melodies, and top-notch performances to start with. That's where a different kind of ear training comes into play: the musical ear training, also known as ear training for musicians. This may seem trickier as it's about recognizing notes and chords by ear or recall them at will. Things like identifying clashing notes, finding the right chord progression for your song, tuning a vocal perfectly, writing a catchy melody, or even recognizing a good musical performance from a bad one, all stem from your musical intuition. When done correctly, ear training for musicians becomes a bridge to the language of music. It enhances your musical intuition to a point where developing musical ideas is as easy as chatting with a friend. This intuitive understanding is absolutely critical for songwriting and production. Traditional methods can make this kind of ear training seem daunting. If you feel your skills in musical ear training aren't quite there yet, rest assured you're not alone. And that's where our method can help you significantly. This is a science-backed approach to ear training designed from my own struggles and those of my thousands of students. Our method is tangible, clear-cut, and successful where others fall short. Imagine the enhancement in your songwriting and production process when you can pinpoint inaccuracies on the spot, improvise great melodies effortlessly, find the perfect chords for your track, etc. You'll revolutionize the way you create music. It will raise the quality and quantity of your ideas while reducing the effort required to materialize them. Very much like knowing grammar rules will make you a much better writer. I invite you to explore our method and witness the transformation for yourself, so you can finally unleash your true potential as a songwriter or music producer. For more information, visit our website or watch our free workshop to learn more about our method. You can find all the relevant links in the description section of this video. Remember, the journey from amateur to professional isn't solely about your gear or software. It's largely about your ears. I know we've covered a lot in this video and it's a lot to take in. But don't go yet. We've got more exciting tutorials for you. Make sure to check out this video up here that you might be interested in.